Meanwhile, there's talk of Cold War 2.0. That's the new buzzword. On one side is America and allies. On the other, China and Russia. Suspicion, hostility, aggression, military muscle flexing without exchanging fire. This is what's happening right now. Standard characteristics of Cold War. Something that played out from 1945 to the end of the 1980s. US versus USSR. These were the two parties then. Now America is taking on China and recruiting allies. One clear ally is Australia. It is effectively edging towards a breakup with China. Trade ties have been disrupted, and this is serious, China and Australia. China is Australia's biggest export market. China makes up 30% of Australia's exports, close to 7% of its GDP. Chinese students and tourists bring big money to Australia, and China is leveraging all of this. It has blocked beef and barley imports from Australia after Prime Minister Scott Morrison demanded an investigation into the outbreak. But Australia remains firm. The Prime Minister had this message for China.
Stress again that what the Australian government is doing is completely unremarkable. We are standing our ground on our values and the things that we know are always important. I'm not aware if there are things that Australia has decisions that we've taken in our national interest, then they are regularly raised in the discussions that I have with Chinese leaders.
Australia won't back down. Then we have Japan. Japan's chief cabinet secretary has spoken about the Uyghurs in China. Yoshihide Suga was addressing the press when he was asked a question about the Uyghurs. The Japanese leader said Tokyo is watching China closely.
Japan recognizes that it is important for international universal values, namely freedom, basic human rights, and the rule of law are ensured in China. And we are watching the human rights situation in the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region with concern.
Japan is also working overtime to pull its businesses out of China. What about the United States? Donald Trump is famous for his U-turns. But for days now, he has been taking on China. Yesterday, in an interview, he did it again. More dramatic this time. Trump threatened to kill America's diplomatic relationship with China. He blamed the Chinese government for spreading the virus. And he said that he does not want to speak to Xi Jinping.
Terrible thing happened, and you can look at it as a source. It took place at a certain point, and it could have been put out, and it should have been put out. And we asked to go over, and they said no. They didn't want our help. And I figured that was okay because they must know what they're doing. So it was either stupidity, incompetence, or it was deliberate, one or the other.
He sounds like he broke up. Strong words there. Quintessential Trump. Sure enough, China had a response to what he said. The messenger was Zhao Lijian. His tone was measured when asked about Trump's response, but he seemed to lose his cool when Taiwan was mentioned.
Since the outbreak of COVID-19, the Taiwan Democratic Progressive Party has used the epidemic to engage in political manipulation. It continues to hype the issue of Taiwan's so-called participation in the World Health Assembly. Its true purpose is to seek foreign support and seek independence with the epidemic issue. We are firmly opposed to this. Their attempt will never succeed.
The hostility is evident. Trump is blaming China for failing to control the outbreak. He's also blaming China for his own failings, and why not? Plus, he has found allies, and he's looking for more. Recently, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo held a video conference with foreign ministers of 7 countries. The idea was to get them on board against China. Indian External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar was part of this digital meeting. Israel and South Korea were among the other participants. Reports say the conversation lasted about 75 minutes. For the US, the focus was on making China pay, restructuring supply chains, and denting China's domination over world trade. The confrontation could escalate on Monday when WHO members meet for the World Health Assembly. Not in person, but on video conference, thanks to the Wuhan virus.